Hey guys, what's up? Well, today gonna show you how to change a servo out on a Redcat RS10. This was something that was requested by one of my viewers, so I figure let's do her. It is a very simple, easy, straightforward operation, but we're gonna show you anyhow. So you're gonna need definitely a screwdriver for fitting the screws. Make sure it's a good fitting screwdriver, very important. And in my case, I'm going to need an Allen key. So I'll grab my Allen keys out. Now if you're working with a stock servo horn, you're not going to need an Allen key, but you will need a flat bladed screwdriver to pry at the horn in order to pop it off. And sometimes with this one you need to as well. But I've got an alloy horn on here, which is an upgrade metal one. Works great, better than the stock horns. They're garbage plastic. So anyways, you're likely going to need standard and metric Allen keys in your collection, because a lot of RCs are built with both standard and metric fasteners for some stupid reason or another. This one's going to probably be metric. Nope, that ain't gonna work either. There we go. Loosen that one off. So you're going to need to pull the screw out of the servo horn itself. You don't have to disconnect the horn from the linkage at all. And then our flat blade. Just give that a little wiggle. And that's out. Now this one here, we just trace the wire. It goes back in here on the receiver. You gently pull and wiggle out. And out comes the servo. And she's out. Now, putting back your servo, or putting in your new one, you're going to need to have your radio equipment with you and your battery because you got to make sure everything's recentered when you put it back together. So, new servo goes in, and they only go in one way as far as the directions go, because you got to make sure that your servo mount for your hole for your horn is as close to this side, because if you put it the other way, you're going to be too short. So make sure it's in the right spot. Do not over torque your screws. You are screwing into plastic threads, so you do not want to over torque anything, but just make sure they go in nice and snug until they stop on their own, and then just a little bit of snugness. That's it. Run your wire. Feed it under everything so you get as much length accessible. Your pins up top here face towards the back of the vehicle in this case, and back into your receiver like so. Now turn your radio on, plug your power in. Now that's your channel 1. So find your channel 1 trim setting. Make sure it's at 0. Channel 1 trim setting is up top here for your front. Give it a couple twists back and forth. And then try and get everything as centered as you can. Pop it on. Now you'll notice that there's just a slight angle this way. That's fine because you're going to need to trim the truck out after anyway, and it's the way the teeth will happen to align. Screw goes back into the servo horn first. Now you want to make sure that your servo horn is snugged in place. Now in the case of this one, I have lockdowns that I also have to use. Okay, so I make sure it's sunken in first, and then I just back out the screw just a little bit, okay, because I want to be able to squish the sides in properly, so you need that screw backed out just a little bit. Turn your power off now. Rotate to whichever one you want to tighten down first. I usually snug up the top one first. Now if you do find that your Allen key might not be fitting right, you may have a worn Allen key. And that's looking like what I've got going on here. That's definitely too small. So, and that does happen. I have this kit that I bought a while back. It has a ton of different bits in it. That's going to be too small. Should give me a little bit of extra pressure. Nope, not gonna work. There we go. That's the right one. Now, once those are snugged, tighten it back up, fire it up. Now, I usually eyeball it initially. That's it. That is how you uninstall and reinstall servo in the Redcat RS10. So I have to go fix my Allen keys because they're worn out at the ends. So, and that does happen. You can buzz Allen keys just on a belt sander, or even take a piece of sandpaper, something around 320 grit or something, put it down on a flat surface and just back and forth gently until you file that back down to a square edge. Because otherwise you get the rounded edge on here and it ain't going to do anything for you. So sometimes you may have to use a Torx bit. You can get Torx bits that sometimes will fit inside these Allen screws here. Most of this truck is just made up of all screws, so you just have to have a good proper fitting screwdriver bit. I've got one of these kits here with the multi screwdriver bits, and there's no play, we're good to go. No play, good. Not really any play there, that's good. Same as this one. So this is a Phillips number 2, which this truck is mainly going to use. So, and you're good to rock and roll. If you find the Phillips number 2 doesn't fit right, then you're going to have to change, like up in your axles here. Phillips number 2 doesn't work, so let's flip it over. This is just a little bit of extra info for you guys. So Phillips number 1 bit, that's a perfect fit. So for your screws for your axle, number 1, and then the rest of the truck is pretty much all number 2. So anyways, any other questions, feel free to ask. As always, I'll do the best I can to answer them. I know this truck really well. You'll notice I also have monster truck suspension on here. This is off of Redcat Volcano, aka HSP Brontosaurus. Exact same truck, no difference at all. And that's because I'm using a solid bodied shell, and they're heavy and way too heavy no matter how much preload you add to the stock suspension for this truck. So the bodies are so heavy, it's just forget it. So I went to a monster truck suspension and added some preloads, 2 in the back because of the way my back sits, and then of course 1 on each front. And these are Traxxas spacers, and you can get these anywhere that sells Traxxas parts. But they work really well on this vehicle. No modifications needed to install them. Just take off the old stuff, slap these on, and away you go. And you know, you do have to reuse your pieces from your other shocks on there, and then they'll go on just great. So, and it still has really good articulation, you know, even with the Jeep body. And I've got a pickup body for this too, and the truck still works really excellent even with this beefier suspension. But I'm going to be going back to the original shocks eventually when I get another Lexan shell, because I want to also use this as a regular crawler. I've set this up to be more of a trail truck than anything else. And but now that I have my axial SCX10 trail truck, I can switch this back to a crawler if I want, or leave it the way it is. But I do have multiple bodies for this thing, so for the next while it's going to stay like this with this suspension. I'll just swap out my hard shells. But if I want to go crawling with this thing, this particular model of the RS10, being the rock slide, is a competition grade crawler. So if you're going to go comp crawling, you're going to want the stock suspension, Lexan body, you know, because you're going to need that articulation in the truck that you don't get with the beefier suspension, okay? But you can certainly set it up like a trail truck like I did. I actually also extended my chassis. These are normally in the center holes, and you have 3 holes here, so you can shrink it up more or extend it out. I've got it to its fullest extension, but I can shrink it back in. I can bring the front in, or you know, leave the front out, bring the rear in, whatever I want to do. So there's a lot of setups on this thing. Even where my shocks are mounted is nowhere near where they're normally mounted on the vehicle stock. You know, so I've changed the geometry of the truck and everything to suit my purposes, and it works really well. And I'm thinking about maybe picking up probably 2 more of these if I can. I'd like to have 2 more rock slides, because I want to take the 2 and make one great big one, you know. But I'm thinking, I don't know if I'll ever do it, but you know, there's a lot of things I'd like to do, but I'll never get them done, and you know, type of thing. But it's nice to have the ideas to do it, and it's just a matter of getting it done. So anyways, guys, like I said again, any questions, feel free to ask, and I'll do the best I can to answer them. But changing these servos, it's very straightforward. One more thing before we go. You'll notice I'm using Traxxas servos. This is an upgrade. The stock servos on these trucks are garbage. Yes, they are waterproof, but they are garbage. They will break easy, okay? So I went to the 2075s, no servo savers, and under any of the use I've put it through, like rigorous, you know, turning and getting stuck and stuff, I've not needed a servo saver. I've not busted a set of gears myself doing any kind of crawling. I just shattered the gears in this, and I don't even know how. We were out crawling not that long ago, bashing around in the park. If you've watched our videos where we were climbing up the big steep hill, and the truck was fine. It even drove back to the car fine, threw it in the car, got it out of the car. I don't know, something happened between going in and out of the car that I guess something got jammed up, and yep, I broke my gears somehow. So, but otherwise, in crawling use, never had a problem with these servos. Never needed a servo saver. In fact, I would never use one. I like these alloy ones much better for servo horns. Anyways, that's it. That's all. Catch ya.